Hi, my name is Robert Massingale, and this is my third Unity homework assignment. It is a simple maze. It's done kind of Doom style with smooth movement, but no ability to actually look up and down or jump. It was required that it was 2D, so that's the path I went. This time I'm actually going to show scripts first, and I started with a core script that was actually a copy of the first player controller script. And I took a couple pieces out to avoid the jumping and the looking, and from there I moved on. As you can see, I've got a lot of variables in here, and they're pretty much self-explanatory in the way that they're named, so I'm not going to bother trying to explain them until I get to them. On awake, I do initialize a couple of things. The motor equals get component character motor is straight out of the first-person controller script. So so I just left it there. It has to be there to actually continue to run. Obviously, at the beginning of the game, when the player controller first awakes, you're going to want it to set the score to 0, and he's not going to be dead when he first wakes up, so that's got to be false. On trigger enter, there are 3 types of objects with triggers in here. I have some gold coins, I have apples that are floating in midair, and I have a large pole that happens to be the goal. Each one of them has a collider that is either sphere or box shaped, just so they can actually connect with them without physically touching them. If they collide with the gold coins, as you can see, it plays one time the gold sound as it's listed, and I'll show you what that looks like in the actual primary editor. It adds a score. It adds to your score the score plus value. It's only set like that so I can change it on the fly if I wanted to while I was testing it. And then it destroys the object that it collided with. It does the same thing for the apple, only it adds to your actual time. It adds to the start time and therefore adds to the total time you have. It also plays a sound specific to the apple and destroys the apple. Then the last one is goal, which plays an in sound and then sets the win statement to true. I couldn't actually put a lot of the information for winning directly into this section of it because a lot of it can only take place in the onGUI function because it displays on the user interface itself. Here is my user interface. I've got a label variable called gold label that is internal only to GUI. It takes the words gold, colon, and the space. The space has to be there, otherwise there will not be a space between the word gold and the score. And then it adds the score to this string. As you can see, I went with a GUI.box, not a simple GUI.label. This puts a nice little box around it and makes it so no matter what, it's always got a background color and separates it from the rest of it. After that, as you can see, I also have a timer that sets up the timer itself. It's based on the time since level load minus start time. I use time since level load instead of time.time because I wanted to ensure that that when I add more levels to this, it will still work and reset the timer on every single level. If the seconds is 0, your time is obviously up, you've lost the game, you're marked as dead, it plays the sound to make you lose, and sets the dead statement to true. It sets the dead statement to true because if I don't use a variable to do that, then it will continue to loop the play one shot of lose sound every single frame. Then I also have a win statement. If the win variable becomes true, then it stops the timer, stops the ability for the character to move, which is a variable I had to add on my own, and displays a message saying that you've won and what your final score is. The rest of it is pretty much just what they added, so I'm going to pause here and load up the game so you can see what I did. Because the time is so specific and so low, I'm going to actually load it while I'm playing. That way you can see. The timer only starts at 15 seconds, but the apples give you enough time to actually continue to move around through the maze. I set every part of the maze up with 3x3 blocks, and the objective is to get to the large pole that you see in the center while collecting as many points as possible. That is the difficult part of it, is collecting the extra points. If you just run through and try and beat the maze, it's not that difficult. But I did set it up so you have a little bit of added challenge for replayability by being able to continue to collect them. In future versions, I will probably add enemies of some sort that can kill you by touching you and make it a little bit Pac-Man-ish. Considering you're already collecting these coins and it makes a little noise every time you do and then deletes them, as you can see. Since you can't jump, it's very limited on your field of vision. But you can see over the walls, and that was intentional. And as you can see, I'm running out of time. I managed to pick up one of my little apple items, though. Overall, it's a pretty smooth running game, save the fact that I've got a lot of stuff open, including the screencast-o-matic right now. You just have to kind of push through the levels relatively quickly to continue moving. And as you can see, I did finally get my audio to work. That was a little bit of a pain. I was having a lot of issues getting the audio to actually work properly because it was destroying the items. And here's my final score displayed with the actual, with the U1 statement. As you can see, my timer is stopped. It displays the golden timer in a nice little box. And I will reload this to show you what it looks like when you lose. I'm just pretty much going to let the time run down here, though. Overall, this was not too difficult to script. It just it took some tinkering for the noises more than anything else. Oh, I forgot one more thing that I need to show you. As you can see, that was a lose screen. It plays a little noise, stops the timer, and tells you lost. I added particle effects to the apples, and I added an animation effect to the apples and a particle effect to the gold. The gold just glitters, as you can see. I didn't want it to glitter too much because there's so much of it. And as you can see at the very bottom down here, the apple just spins in circles. It was part of the assignment. It was a required part of the assignment to have some form of animation and some sort of particle effect. So I made sure that I added something, but I didn't want it to distract from the rest of what I did or start to lag the machine, so I made it small. And I guess I'll just try and finish playing this through. Obviously, since I built it, I know where most of the stuff is without having to look at it much, and I know my way around the maze relatively well. That said, sometimes it's still hard to make it through and get as many items as possible, as you can see from the fact that I just lost. While I was testing it, I had this "Your time is up" thing pop up in the bottom before I actually set the labels. This was designed so I could just test it as I was coding it. That's pretty much the entire program. I hope you enjoyed it. I will have to let you see the updated version when I do my midterm, which is going to be the next thing I do. It will have 3 levels and a loading screen and an end screen. That's pretty much all I have to say on that. Have a good day, y'all. I did forget one other thing that I'm adding on to the end here. I forgot to show you a couple of things on where I set my variables. Because everything's done in one script, it's all attached to the player variable. I did have some problems interacting with the scripts otherwise to actually set a script for the collision on each item and have them affect everything I needed them to. They were getting destroyed before they actually created the audio effects on collision, so I got rid of those. As you can see right here, I have all my sounds. There's a couple here that I intend to use a little bit later as I update this program. And I just dragged the audio components that you see here listed on the screen right here to their locations here for gold sound, apple sound, end sound, which is the game 1 sound, and lose sound. Because it uses colliders, obviously, as you can see, there's a rigid body on the player, and each one of the items that you can connect with has a collider on it. Each of the colliders is marked trigger. These use sphere colliders, and this large goal uses a cube collider, or a capsule. Okay, a capsule collider. You have to actually physically touch this one. The rest of them actually have a radius around them that you can touch. it was really easy to accidentally miss one before, so I just created sphere colliders on all of them and made them wide enough that as long as a player walks by them, they can collect them. Out there's a directional light. It's set up the same way that my directional lights were in the other one, in the other projects I've done. And these boxes I set up using the by holding down V, you can grab the corners and actually cause them to link up with other edges. That's how I set up basically the entire level for the maze itself. A couple places I actually deleted a few bricks to give better mobility and to give multiple paths, but I set them up pretty much like that. I did a lot of copy and pasting of these bricks. I try to give it kind of an old school dungeon feel, so I wanted it to make it so, let's say you were using graph paper, or later on I add a map effect, you'll be able to actually mark off X's on the squares that you can't walk through, etc. That pretty much shows it from more of a developer standpoint, so there you go.